It is the 27th of the 1st, 2026. The time is 21 minutes past 8 British, and that means, as always, one thing, that there are a multitude of F1 centric threads at which we need to pull. It is day 2. We will go through it in summary. Limited running, wet conditions, 2 Red Bulls in the barrier, no less. What are we doing here? Gonna get techier than techie things, but we must review, do you know what I mean? If not us, then who else? Let me talk to you about this testing thing, because again, in fact, let me say this at the outset before we get into the weeds and some slides. Some have said, Crow Ying, Tilioro, Neil, John Cami, some have said, Herzo, that F1 have dropped the ball as far as this private test. If indeed we have the conversation under the following aegis, that F1 is not a sport, it is content. Therefore, open up the doors and let us as fans in. F1, what is the point? Bloody Nora, it leaves me frustrated. However, having talked to some very reliable sources, I have it on good account that this is the reason why they closed the doors. Not necessarily because of a brand new rule and reg spec, that there is a risk aversion as far as the F1 teams and drivers. It is this. You'll recall that the brand new rule spec dictates 50% of the power unit will come from ICE, 50% of it will come from EVs, electric power settings. What have EVs been famous for doing over the past couple of years? If not blowing up and catching on fire, these electric batteries will be doing a gazillion recharges a lap, right? How do you know how it's going to work? Are they going to catch on fire, or is it going to be okay? The F1 teams, drivers, the powers that be, they do not know. And I understand that that's why they've closed the doors, because the optics of having another car lost science a couple of years back at Austria with cars up in flame would not be good for anybody concerned. Not the key stakeholders, nor the F1 teams, nor the drivers. That's what I understand. And it makes sense to a lesser extent, maybe a greater extent, I don't know. But still, open up the bloody doors, F1. Show us warts and all. You understand in 2026 January of that everything is content. What are we doing here, ladies and gentlemen? Can you say gatekeepers extraordinaire? That's what they are. And it leaves me feeling sad each and every single time. They privatise the profits and socialise the losses, just like the banks did in 2008 subprime crisis. And I, for one, don't think it's acceptable. Oh, and by the way, Isaac Hadjar, first Red Bull driver in the barrier, not good, but it was wet, so I will extend him some grace. Therefore, Isaac Hadjar writes the race, and again, one of the God tieriest journo groups, sections to have ever covered the sport. They're out there in real time, notwithstanding the fact that they can't even get close to the bloody cars. Whenever they stand within vision of the track, they're told, listen, this is our patch of land, mate, 600 metres away from the Circuit de Catalunya. You're having a laugh, ain't you? They say that Isaac Hadjar appears to have brought, let me make this bigger before my eyes start failing again. Isaac Hadjar appears to have brought the Red Bull's second day of running at the F1 Barcelona test to an early end. With around 30 minutes of the day's session left, Hadjar lost control of the RB22 at the final corner. Oh, Isaac, what are we doing here, chat? Oh, what are we doing? Keep it on the black stuff, Isaac Hadjar. As God tier as he is, he's got a cheeky mistake in him, especially when he's been benchmarked now in 2026 against one Max Emilian Verstappen. Oh, the humanity. Although it's not known if this was because of driver error or caused by a car problem. However, the end result was that he skipped across the gravel and ended up against the tyre barriers on the outside. So here again, this is your exhibit A, right? Your devil's advocate. This is the reason why you close the doors, because you don't want to see this necessarily if you are the Bulls that are red. Another cheeky shot of Isaac Hadjar's crash, yeeting it, being recovered out of the barrier, courtesy of Natchez 98. Here's what you need to know again as far as the laps completed per power unit. Now, again, the context is key. As far as testing due diligence of the automotive pugilistic variety, of course, the currency is getting as many laps. It's not about times, but as F1 fans, barbershop talk, you can't help but be swayed by times. Let's look at the laps though. Per power unit, and again, you have Mercedes, Alpine, No longer, not Williams, because they're not coming. You'll have McLaren in a couple of days potentially as they start to run. But the problem is this: Mercedes again have the whip hand, 209 laps completed. Ferrari cars 198. Not bad from Scuderia Ferrari, better than I'd expect. However, the deluge, the plethora of reliability issues that people feared, that the powers that be feared, 2014 Jerez settings, that hasn't been the case. All of these cars and power units have jumped out the box and they've been diamond. Very little reliability issues. However, again, if word on the F1 curb is something in which you want to be invested, some say that fire is ever present, that there are flames coming out of some of these cars. But again, we don't get to see it because we only get the curated version of the edit. Oh, and by the way, Maximilian Verstappen nailed himself a cheeky 27 laps per Eric Van Haren. A cheeky crash from Isaac Hadjar. Now you get different reports. Eric Van Haren saying that Max Verstappen didn't stop out on track. Others are saying that he did. It's wet conditions. Though I watched myself a bit of Max Verstappen footage. And mate, rally settings, WRC, he was sideways coming out of the pits. Oversteer settings. As Max Verstappen's modus operandi, you'll be aware, is to go over the limit to find out what the limit is. So brilliant as this chap manipulating the car in and on and around limits of adhesion. Eric Van Haren continues that feedback overall per the Red Bull guys still prevails, that it's positive. They're getting the laps in. Verstappen still has a full day of running. Use of Red Bull's compression trick is denied and updated in Melbourne. Now Audi have put in a fresh protest. Again, breaking news kind of. But I see that Audi, Jonathan Wheatley et al. Mattia Binotto is still not happy at compression rates. Red Bull and Mercedes will have themselves anywhere between 13 to 14 brake horsepower and therefore a more efficient power unit going into 2026 at the altar of this cheeky 18-to-1 compression ratio. You'll be aware that the FIA amended for the bloody terms and conditions in the regs, didn't they? They said, listen, initially 16-to-1 is the limit. When we test it, you better make sure it's 16-to-1. They amended shortly thereafter the verbiage to something like this. You need to make sure that it's 16-to-1 at ambient temperatures, meaning that when we test it in the pits, make sure it's 16-to-1 then. To which Mercedes and Red Bull Ford said, you know what, okay, that's fine. We'll make sure it's 16-to-1 when it's in the pits, but it will be 18-to-1 when it's out on track. What are you doing, FIA? They make a rad for their own back, don't they, sometimes? Let me show you this then. Max Verstappen topped his timing sheets on a 119.58, but it was a staccato running from both Max and Isaac Hadjar. So too Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc getting some time. Don't pay too much attention to the times. Lewis ran his in the morning when it was wetter as far as the track conditions are concerned. Here's where it gets techie though. There are only a few days left of this testing, and some are saying the forecast is only going to be wet between now and the end of the session. Friday settings. So what are these teams like McLaren going to do? They're going to have to run the car right, even if it is wet and the track circumstance aren't very useful as far as extrapolating out some meaningful data. You are going to have to some running is better than no running at this stage, surely. Bottom left of your screen, total laps. Scuderia Ferrari got 120 in by dint of Charles and Lewis. Red Bull Ford powertrain 78 laps. Not bad though. Listen, I'm surprised that there hasn't been more reliability issues, to be honest. It's a brand new rule and regs, but the biggest change in recent memory in the weird and wacky world that is F1. I hope pure rain for McLaren. Listen, it sounds like it might be the case. The FIA can easily impose some sort of PU penalty for Mercedes if they really wanted to, says Neil. So to that point, 27 laps only, Audi. To that point, that was yesterday, Easy G. I think Audi are taking a break, as have a couple of the other teams. To that point, Neil, the FIA, the rumour is that as of race 6, that the FIA are going to look at it. If Mercedes are a gazillion miles down the road, Mercedes power unit cars are a gazillion miles down the road, you bet your bottom dollar they will intervene. There's something called DUO, meaning, I can't even remember the name of this, the meaning of the pseudonym, development upgrade opportunities or something like that. Basically, the teams can go and change bits that they wouldn't ordinarily be able to if the gap between them and the market leaders in Mercedes is too big. If the racing, the quality of the competition is being dulled down, they will revisit this chat as of race 6. George and Kimi Antonelli can't be allowed to go too far because everybody will turn off. It can't be 2000 to 2004 Michael Schumacher, because again, everybody will turn off. You need stakes, reasons why to watch anything, let alone Formula One. And if it's Kimi and George just competing back and forth and there is no Max or any other unwanted entrant as far as the boys and girls from Brackley and Brixworth are concerned, you bet your bottom dollar viewership and therefore market capitalisation of F1 will go down. Oh, and by the way, I'll show you this. This was day one. So I think this is total now. 318 laps from Ferrari. That's not bad going. Ferrari power united cars. Red Bull powertrains 273, 209 from Mercedes. Audi 27 laps. Honda 0. And to that point, guys and girls, I'm hearing that Adrian Newey is trying to do something sexy. If past his prologue, you wouldn't expect anything else from him, eh? Adrian Newey is, of course, the last airbender. You'll recall, as far as some of the complaints from his colleagues over at Red Bull, too demanding as far as the gearbox packaging, so that he had a load of landscape using which he could do some very sexy things with the side pods and the bloody wing beam. You will recall. So don't think for a second that Adrian Newey is not looking to do something similar. Ted Kravitz on the Sky Sports broadcast said something to this effect: you'd rather have Adrian Newey and 0 testing than no Adrian Newey and 100 days of testing. That's the level at which the last airbender is operating. Let me show you some Scuderia Ferrari. I don't even know what this says apart from the 200 laps that they got in. However, that picture, that car looks like Megatron, right? It looks like Predator without the helmet. That car looks chaotic. And again, what stock can you put in what a car looks like, right? If it's fast, nobody will care. It could look like if it's quickest on the grid, it could only have 4 wheels. Nobody would care.
Given the rule changes, how satisfying?
Lewis Hamilton gives an interview talking about it. I'm trying to gauge. Let's watch it and then I'll react to it afterwards.
Given the rule changes, how satisfying is this for the whole team to arrive here and get such a solid number of laps on the board straight away and starting to learn about your new car?
Well, it could be so much worse. So such a big rule regulation change. So to get through the day without too many major, there were no major issues. It's just small little increments that we're trying to improve on. I think it's great, and as I said, we just need to try and get some more days like this.
So what is, given the...
So go on then. On this Lewis Hamilton interview, I'm glad that he's positive. However, I couldn't help, I was talking to a friend earlier, and I couldn't help but be reminded of Toto Wolff's reaction to this being surprised at Lewis joining Scuderia Ferrari. Now, of course, from Lewis Hamilton's POV, he had an itch and it needed scratching. He wanted, before he retired, to drive the red car with the yellow badge and the black prancing horse on top, and fulfilling that dream. Of course, Lewis deserves some credit. What else does he have to prove to you or I or any of the parasocial relationship cult I'll hate? He can do what he wants. If he sees the car's rubbish and decides to hang up his Nomex, then fair play to him. 7-time champion, Mount Rushmore of F1, first round Hall of Fame is who Sir Lewis Hamilton is, and thou shalt put some respect on it. However, let me tell you this, I couldn't help watching Lewis in the car and seeing the interviews. Lewis positive, coming back from a break, ready to go. 41 years old, father time, undefeated, undisputed, pound for pound, has never lost the round. However, I couldn't help watching that Mercedes PU and seeing George Russell of Kings Lynn, Norfolk's odds tumble as in the know money comes down and amends his odds in real time. I couldn't help but be reminded of this. Toto, on the back of hearing the news that Sir Lewis was going to join Ferrari, his words were very pointed and I have never forgotten them. He said in reaction that I'm not surprised that Lewis left, that he had an itch that he wanted to scratch in Scuderia Ferrari. That doesn't surprise me, said Toto. the boy who cried wolf. What surprises me is the timing. Now, at the time when Toto said that, I was like, what's he talking about? Let Lewis live. What are you going to do? He's only going to be around for a max of 2 to 3 years. Whether you want him to stay in that bloody dodgy car with that dodgy team, living on former glories in perpetuity. Do you know what I mean? Was his dreams of driving the red car fade away? And I thought to myself, is Toto onto something here? Listen, let me tell you this, this is techier than techie things. If Mercedes have built themselves a god tier car, a god tier PU, and have nailed some aerodynamic efficiency and leveraged the bloody regeneration, an efficient regeneration of the battery et al., this is going to be a problem, chat. I'm telling you, because Lewis Hamilton will be looking at that Kimi Antonelli seat thinking, well, that could have been me. You remember as well, Toto and George said, listen, Lewis, you need to take a good look at our rear wing, because after this season, when you leave us and join the red team, that's all that you're going to see. That is chaos. Meanwhile, Turtle, you are right, Ferrari, we are checking instability settings ad nauseum. You know what I mean? Can't even get a bloody race engineer for Sir Lewis in the first 6 months because everybody's on bloody gardening leave. What are we doing here? I'm telling you, if Mercedes nail themselves a car, as is rumoured, if they have anywhere between half a second and a second in hand on the rest of the field, so efficient have they been in producing a god tier W17. Can you imagine Lewis's face? If he was negative last year, I mean, he's going to be green with envy looking at Kimi Antonelli and George Russell of Kingsley and Norfolk fighting between themselves over a championship of the drivers' variety. It will get techie. Let me show you this as well.
Given the rule changes, how
Maximilian
satisfying.
Verstappen. Come on. Apparently, there's some Maximilian Verstappen. I don't hate it. So much. Shout out to Soy Motor. Just covering the sport in a way. I mean, doing F1's bidding for them any. Let me show you this Ferrari as well. I mean, fantastic images out. Bloody Nora, what are we doing? F1, sort your life out. It's not good enough. And I saw this image, these moving pictures about that nicely depict, as good as I've ever seen it, some active aero. Let's take a look at this one. Courtesy the guys and girls over at F1 Reddit. I tell you what, that's impressive, eh? You can see them both moving at the same time. I think we're going to have a problem. Soybeans. I think we're going to have a problem with this and reliability at some stage because there are too many moving parts. There are a multitude of them. You have the electric power, so too you've got the active aero, you've got the fact that nobody understands these rules and regs properly and probably won't for the first 6 to 8 races. You have drivers. Isaac Hajar said today that he thinks the cars are much easier to drive, which of course favours a chap like Sir Lewis Hamilton. You remember we all said it was going to be the managerial championships, that the cars will be trickier. Not so, says Isaac Hajar. More progressive, more predictable, and I don't hate that. Not for any of the drivers, especially not for Sir Lewis. Aero packages are going to be fun to watch 100%. Oh, John, I certainly hope not. Turtle says, I would like to see Lewis do as well as he had. Such a hard season, and it was not 100%. Felt like I was watching a video that I shouldn't be watching, almost like a memoir into surrender, into Lewis Hamilton's pain. It was hot, like a window into his soul. It was difficult, and that's why I say what I say about Mercedes. Can you imagine if Toto and George deliver on their promise to put Lewis Hamilton in their rear view and rear view only? Oh, the humanity. No, I don't think so. Lewis is the envy type. You don't think Lewis is the envy type? He has his own mission, and I think he just focuses on that. That's what he'll show us, Neil. He'll never be in front of the world's press and media and saying, oh, I'm really jealous of Mercedes. But just as he didn't tell us that he thought he had hopes of leaving Mercedes one day, do you know what I mean? He keeps his emotional light under a bushel and will not show it to anyone. I think that's the way that he's been brought up. Fired Alonso, fired Costa. Aldo Costa, excuse me, Neil. Yeah, they've gone through a couple Scuderia Ferrari god tier mines, haven't they? And who are they left with? I don't know. Ferrari be like, we've seen Mercedes, we need more HP. Graphic designers say no more. So aero packages are going to be fun. Like Ericsson, almost in Monza when DRS failed, and last year when it was bloody Jack Doohan, Suzuka. I'm worried ever so slightly. I'd forgotten. Let me tell you this story very, very quickly. I spoke to a friend who lives in a very posh part of London, £1 million houses, multi-million pound, and he told me a story about how if you own an electric vehicle and when you insure it, you park outside of your multi-million pound house. Some say that invalidates your home insurance. So prone are these EVs to exploding via setting. That, ladies and gentlemen, tells you how susceptible then these F1 cars are, doing 1,000 different recharges per lap, volatility settings, driving at 1,000 miles an hour in 1,000 brake horsepower cars. What do you think? I mean, if the Teslas are just blowing up randomly, then what do you think? How susceptible do you think these F1 batteries are to? I think it's going to get techier than techie things. Hopefully we don't see anybody endangered. But if you see a F1 car and F1 car out on track aflame, I wouldn't be surprised. Not this private test, because again, there's a gazillion fire marshals there, unprecedented levels at the Circuit de Catalunya. If word on the F1 curb is to be believed, but watch when we roll forward into Bahrain in a couple of weeks' time. I think it's going to get techie, then techie things. Between now and next time, prosecution rests. No further questions, Your Honour.